Well, good afternoon, Mama Naomi. What an honor to be here with you today. I've known you for a long time. It's been my long time dream to sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with you like this.
Right.
So I just want to start by saying I'm so deeply honored to share space with you today.
Likewise.
All right, so we're going to begin. And first, I'm going to begin by reading the bio that you sent us. Naomi Diouf is a distinguished cultural leader and master artist whose 5-decade career has profoundly shaped the preservation and advancement of African and African diaspora performing arts in the United States. As artistic director of Diamano Coura West African Dance Company and co-founder of Collage de Culture Africaine, the Bay Area's longest-running African diaspora dance festival, she has built enduring institutions that serve as pillars of cultural education, artistic excellence, and community empowerment. Diouf's work bridges continents and generations, fostering intercultural dialogue and mentorship, while elevating African dance as a vital art form within American and global context. Through her teaching, choreography, and advocacy, Diouf has cultivated a legacy that continues to inspire social change, artistic innovation, and cultural pride across communities worldwide.
Wow.
Yes, that's you.
Oh, yeah, that's my legacy right there.
Yeah, yes.
Sure.
Well, speaking of legacy, we want to go back to the beginning. I know you co-founded a legacy dance company 5 decades ago. If you can just take us back to the beginning of your journey, wherever you like to begin, when you first came to this country, when you first founded Diamano Coura, where were you in your life when this cultural work became important to you?
I guess I would say maybe in the 70s, after coming here as an exchange student, and meeting up with some of the, I would say, icons, that were here, of African dance, Ibrahim Kamara, they had a company called Compo, Zach, they had his company, even though at the time it was, not in full function because he had just come from working with Catherine Dunn in East St. Louis, because that's the person who brought him here. And, it was that time, I would say, that, set a tone for the direction, I'm in where I am today. Because, with Compo, it was our work, at San Diego Wild Animal Park and during the summertime, and performing 3 times a day at the Wild Animal Park, and coming in contact with all these people, with all these, a varied, community of people, that will come pretty much every day, and we're there for 7 days a week, will come to watch this performance. We'll have dialogue with them and whatnot. And I would say that's when it really started, my stay in San Diego during that time, performing at the Wild Animal Park. And then remaining there, continuing to, during that time period also was this drive to educate. And so we stayed in that area. And what happened is that we were invited to do these school shows that would take us to various schools 3 times a day, 3 different schools in one day, or during the week, and meeting, thousands of young people, and the enthusiasm, that they showed, with us performing for them, educated, playing with them, doing African games and whatnot. A lot of them had never seen, and so they were amazed, and the crowd participation was even amazing for them. They were like, wow, we never had this before. So I was saying, that time period, there was the start. And my, entire relationship with San Diego, Los Angeles, because I was there during, we did a lot of interaction with the Watts, we know about the Watts Tower and whatnot. So there were many artists who was there. There was Earth the Kid. I met, many other, prominent, dancers, artists who have come and gone, and so, and also starting, with having a dance, collective in Los Angeles, in San Diego. I mean, those were the moments. That was the tone. That's what set the tone. And I knew, there was something for me. It wasn't about me, but it was what I could deliver, to people, what excited people, this culture, and I felt my culture coming from Africa, people were just eating it up. And, I was born.
Thank you. During that era and that time, this exciting environment, could you describe a little bit of what was or what were the cultures you were sharing and describing? And maybe also on camera, tell us a little bit of what country are you from?
The funny thing, and I tell people that though I am a Liberian, I was born in Liberia, but my background, I have always been interested in, I call it international arts, international dance. And so, even coming from Liberia, I had dabbled into different dance styles. When I came to the States, I also dabbled into different dance styles, because I was fascinated. My whole goal was that dance was a universal language, and just because we are from a particular place doesn't mean we are stuck there. We don't become stagnant, because I look all around, I saw all these fascinating movements. I saw, heard amazing music. And every music I heard, it didn't matter whether it was traditional African or it was classical music. There was some dance I could feel coming, emanating from there. So when people ask me, what is that specific? And, what drove me to be where I am? It is different. I would say many things. There were many, many things that drove me to be where I am today. That made me decide, okay, this is what I want to do. Yes, I'm going to specialize in traditional African dance because that's the essence of my survival, But I also find this connection to other dance styles because, I go back to the formation of man, that we came from one place. So there must be a connection with so many other places that we are sometimes in denial about.
Wow. Traditional African dance, essence of my survival, connecting with the globe through different cultures. And sometimes we deny that.
Yes.
So in the beginning, as you co-founded Coura about 50 years ago, what was the original vision of the company?
The original vision was it was during that time period. And I'd tell people, I was fortunate to be around that time, maybe on the end of what a lot of people call the Black Arts Movement. So it was actually from that whole ideology behind Black Arts Movement of, people, Black people getting back to the heritage, connecting to the roots, connecting to Africa, that was actually the basis of Diamano Coura. Coming from San Jose State University, that was the development, that was the basis, that was the institution, that was created there around this principle that, people wanted to capture the essence of who they were, where they came from, and have connection to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, therefore, in the beginning, as you set out to co-create and manage and run this amazing African dance group, what were some of the initial activities? I would assume classes and performances.
Right. Always it starts with classes, and within the African tradition, it starts with the people. It starts here, like in the community, because we say everyone dances, whether you believe it or not. If you can walk, you can dance. So it's the thing. African dance is rooted in the community, in the earth. Because it's a people's dance. Yes, I mean, we do have professional companies because, some people choose to be professional, and we need that because that's how we take this form to many diverse places where people can appreciate, where people can join us, and it is known, but it is a community dance because it is the people's dance.
Everybody dances. That's a really great reminder for the Western world.
I know you'd be surprised. I meet people who say, "Oh, I cannot dance." I say, "Are you walking right now?" They say, "Yes." "Do you put one foot in front of the next?" "Yes." I said, "But then you can dance."
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you were continuing this company, teaching and creating work, what were some of the this work you mentioned very much connected to the Black arts movement? If you think back to like the first decade, what were the things you began to realize that helped to shape your work and direct your work in certain directions as you were connecting with the community and perhaps being involved in some of the political movement, right? Rooted in, if you could just talk a little bit about that, and if you want to share any stories about sort of specific social justice actions that you were involved in the beginning days, that would be great as well.
Oh, yes, I remember. I know when when I was in Los Angeles, and my first engagement, in dance, well, I lived in Compton, and I tell the kids, when they tell me, they say, "What, you live in Compton?" I said, "Of course I live in Compton." That's where I was. And a lot of my connection in dance started from in that area because the group of people I was with, it was a collection of artists, and we used to perform in different places. We performed at the Shrine Auditorium in these, grand feathers. I mean, it was totally, something, different. But, the dance itself and the people they would work with, it was right then with those group of people. They were political people. They were all activists in the community. They were all people, again, like I talk about the Watchtower and whatnot, when the whole issue was the what's there happening and whatnot. Those were the very people who were involved with those actions. So, I mean, as a newcomer, and I have merged myself with them, I was a part of that event, quiet because you have to learn. You don't just jump in and feel like, oh, I know everything. No. It was a quiet immersion into that whole action. And that particular environment of activism and engagement and whatnot, it was part of content. It was part of Watts. And many of the people that I work with, that was what they did.
Do you have a memory of in these social justice actions of specifically incorporating arts and culture in something as we see today and over the years, right? Like many times in rallies, we would see the incorporation of African drumming and so forth. And do you have a memory from those days to share of, bringing that arts and cultural element?
Well, as I said, because I started in LA and it was so prominent during that time period, you know, I would say it was actually part of the fabric of activism. There was no separation because, like I said, at that time, folks were recapturing, this idea of the African selves, and part of the essence, how do you pull people together? We know it's the drumming, it's the music, it's the song. You cannot create revolt or anything without having that element present. So there was no way that an activity didn't happen if you didn't have the drums, the music, and the dancing, because that was the call to action.
Embedded in every part of life.
Of course, yes.
Absolutely. And when you started the company and you were running the company, what were your aspirations? You and Papa were hoping that through Diamano Coura you would.
Our aspiration was always to bring people together. We were always the bridge, cultural, we were these cultural people that always wanted to bridge people, bring people together and whatnot. And I think today is still the essence of what I'm trying to do with Diamano Coura. Even as I pull in the new generation, of creators, of, musicians and whatnot within the company itself, that is still the essence, that we are a bridge. We bring people together, whether, even if they don't realize it, but we are there to make them realize it, that this art form that we are doing is not ours, but it's just a gathering place for everyone.
And gathering place. Mm-hmm. You talked about that intergenerational connection.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit of why people call you Mama Nayo?
It's because I put it simply put, my maternal instinct always kicks in, and I'm always, kids look at me because, again, my work with schools, my work teaching at Berkeley High School, I have always been, the one to say, these are all my children. And if I'm going to think that way, I protect them as my children, I cuddle them as my children, but I'm going to discipline them like my children. Because if that is what I want for my own, if I'm calling them my children, right, I have to be the best that I can. Yeah. And so it has always been where I want to say, even though I have become, I was a disciplinarian, but it was true love. It's one of those things where they used to have to say that, one of my teachers called me and said, you provide tough love, didn't you? I said, well, yeah, I like that, because you have to provide tough love for people, for the children. If you call them your children, you have to take care of them. So from there, Mama Nayo, you always stuck.
Yes. And then you talked about Berkeley High. I know you've been so instrumental at starting these various groundbreaking programs. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about how you were able to advocate to start an African dance program at Berkeley High School?
Well, let me take it back, and I would take credit for growing the program, but I won't take credit for starting the program. Only because when I came into the program in 1991, there's an African American Studies department. And to have an African American Studies department, African tradition, dance, movement, song, music is inclusive. You cannot have it separate. Yeah. So when I came into the program, at least that element was there with the rest of the teaching of, the history, the music, poetry, and all of that. When I came in, there was a foundation because Anissa Rashid was there prior to me, So when I came in, one Robert McKnight brought me in. There was a base. And from that base, I grew it into something else. And so today, it's even bigger.
It's so amazing. I've been to some of the performances of even the beginners level classes. It's so phenomenal.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about you've been mama, to so many kids, and love to hear about if you want to, give specific examples of some of the kids, young artists you've mentored over the years. Any specific examples or general examples you like to give? I know you're very modest, but I know you've transformed so many people's lives. So any specific examples you like to, give to us, that would be great.
I thought about that, but besides, the dancers in Diamano Coura who are just phenomenal, some some are doing their own thing. They have their, they're still with the company, but it's still, their vision is just what the young people say is popular right now, because they have ideas because they have had, the foundation, that they have the tools and whatnot to know that, hey, I can do this. We need to continue this tradition, But then sometimes I go out wherever I am. It can be at the airport. It can be in wherever in another state. What is amazing when someone runs up to me and says, Mama Naomi, I remember you. You were the one that kept me in school. You helped me graduate. I remember when I was hanging out all the time, I didn't want to go to class. But when I walked into your classroom, and you did this, and that, that's what saved me and got me to high school. I graduated. Now I'm this person. I went on to become that. That's, for me, that's the accomplishment. That's the story, I want to be able to hear, that makes me feel like, okay, I did something, in my lifetime. I wasn't just for myself, I made somebody's life, better, and I get that a lot, and it feels good,
Yes.
And just Saturday, I met some people. We went through the same journey, And of course, they cry because, Papa Zach is no longer around because he was also instrumental, in that. So,
Yes. Love to spend a little bit of time chatting about Papa Zach.
And his soul rest in peace, yes.
Yes, rest in peace. And tell us a little bit about Papa Zach, his legacy, and your legacy together.
Boy, the man, he was a giant, and the people who knew him knew that, Sometimes I want to say that he's one of those, you would say, he was before his time, in a sense that the knowledge that he had, couldn't be realized by people around him, because it was just far removed, and so his creativity and whatnot, we didn't even realize it during his lifetime, and we tried to capture some of what he had for us, you know, but I think about all that we did because when I go to Senegal, and those who remember and they are talking about him, his legacy and whatnot, I can only say, oh, wow. I said, this is what is happening to, our leaders who are going to be our ancestors. We are not capturing the essence of their life, the things that they offered, things that they brought to life, to the world, and it makes you sad because you say, oh, that is so bad that we couldn't capture all of that.
And what is it that we did not capture?
Well, I would say his brilliance in creativity. He had so much vision, his choreographies and whatnot. The ideas that he used to talk about choreography, the songs that he knew, the stories, Yeah, we didn't capture that. We captured some, but not enough. And those are things where we lose them, and we know that, it doesn't matter whether, our tradition, another tradition, we lose them. Yeah.
Thank you for that acknowledgement. And yet, both you and Papa Zach have, of course, shared so much over the decades. Tell me a little bit about when you and Papa Zach created collage. What is collage? When was it founded? What was the idea?
I'll put it this way. Our thinking has always been around, I always say, we know the power of people working together. Yes, we all have our individual company, and it's great, right? But it's nothing like when you bring those individual companies together and the explosion that happens when you see all of them on stage in performance and whatnot, and even in dialogue when you do panel discussion or, you do the workshops, where people come and they're interacting with these knowledgeable people, whether, they're seasoned or even brand new performers who are just coming on the scene. But it was this dynamic of, the collection of people coming together, of students, seeing these artists from diverse backgrounds coming together. And the way they live together, the way they dance together, the way they drum together, students see that and it created such a powerful environment for them so that after the event, people would write and say, oh, that was so refreshing. That was so powerful to be with those master artists and just to see them in the element, So that was the whole idea behind collage.
Bringing different companies,
bringing different bodies of people together, different ideologies together, and see what could emerge from that.
And how long ago was collage founded?
Collage was 1995. Yes, but the idea was, I say, from the 90s, from the 80s, and so on. And I would say it even goes back to when, like you said, Nimble and the Liberian group came, and Diamano, Coura, and them used to perform. Plus we had, other groups now in San Diego, and the amazement, of people when they saw these different cultures merging together and on stage, in a performance. So the ideology was so long before, but the implementation was in 1995 because the platform was there. Because we actually came on the back of Mandela Institute, who had this also fabulous array of bringing, companies together and whatnot.
In the expansive work of more than 30 years of the collage, could you share one or two memories of specific artists, specific events that kind of stand out to you? Like, wow, I remember this.
One of them, really, I mean, when you say that, it's just like, oh, this is, we had guest artist, his name Papa Tamar. He's a very, very, well-known artist. And he worked with even Montu in Chicago, but he was a cultural bearer. And we brought him, he's Mandinko by, culture. And we brought him and other artists that we also brought. At that time, he was the national director of the National Ballet of Senegal, Bodi Sanko. So we were able to bring them and we put a collection. We brought everyone together and they did one piece, half show, one piece. Everyone, all the different companies came together and we put a piece together. And that was the most amazing thing to see, collection of people. And then, with that, we knew that people can get together. I always used to tell my students, is that we have to look ourselves as being at the watering hole where you see all the different animals. But what are they doing? Drinking water together, and they are all there. There is no squabbling. There is no confusion. They are all there together. The zebras, the lions, you name it, they are all there. That was what the moment was.
Always bringing people together. Always bringing people together.
Because, people have power.
Yeah.
Together we do accomplish a lot. Except individually, we're weak.
What do you think back of bringing people together for accomplishment? Do you have certain, a memory or two that you could share about we came together to accomplish this?
Well, I would go back. What I said, I would say, it was the 80s, when there was a problem here at the Malanga. At that time, it was the Alice Art Center. And all of the artists got together because there was a threat on the building where they wanted to, do something, move people out, change it and whatnot. And all the artists said, oh, no, you are not. And what happened? Everyone got together and we marched on City Hall as a collective, as a powerful force. And of course, that changed everything because I believe at the time it was Lionel Wilson that was there. And I would say he was one of our stunts supporter, Lionel Wilson, and not Jerry Brown. What is for the former mayor, black mayor. Yeah. But anyway, there was a powerful force, and they saw the work, they saw the need, and they backed us.
And what were the changes that the artists were advocating for the building?
One of the things that happened, we got a new building after the earthquake, and what happened is that, artists were placed in this building, that's your home.
So before there was a building, but there was no specific artist's position.
No, there was no specific artist. It was always struggle. It was always a fight. We had to go to council meeting and have these, at that time, Edsel Matthew was here. We'll go to city council and there will be these, drag out, loud, whatever kind of happened at city. So the artists really didn't have a place until after. Yeah, it was always a struggle.
And that was, you said the march took place in the 80s.
It took place in the 80s.
But the building became an artist building in the early 90s.
Yeah,
right?
because, yes. And what happened, it was also during the time of the earthquake. Remember, the earthquake happened.
89.
And yes, we had to be moved out of the building because it was unsafe. And so the Alice Art Center went through a renovation.
And after the building opened, there were, I think there's a short list of like Oakland Ensemble Theater.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe Diamano Coura was
Diamano Coura was there at the time. Yeah, unfortunately, Columbia was phasing out. Yeah, Diamano Coura was here, and City Center was still here. So we were placed in the building in strategic, I call it strategic, form.
And Diamano Coura is still a resident company in the building.
Yes, Diamano Coura is still a resident company. Yes. Right, yeah.
Over the decade, what has this building meant for you personally, for you, Diamano Coura, and for the community, for you, any of the above?
Yeah. Well, let me say, this is home. Diamano Coura is home. And even when, even if I would go back to this interview when, you say, oh, well, want to do this interview with me, with Miss Deborah. And, that's why I said, because this is home, this will be the place to have the interview. My connection, my heart, my everything is here. I made this part of me. So everything here resonates with who I am, So that's how it's strong. And there it's a home because I found people go, right? There are people who have lived for years and they will walk back through the door and say, oh my God, I'm glad you are still here. I say, they would say, oh, it is wonderful to have a place you can come back to and it's still there. And you're still practicing the art, still doing the classes and still carrying on. So, I mean, it's something for Oakland that is irreplaceable. And this is something we keep, emphasizing to everyone, to the city council, to Parks and Rec and stuff. This is a building that others are emanating, because they see the power that exists in this building, from this building, the people that call this building home. And we are one of them.
And literally, if this is your home, if you're not here, you are literally homeless.
Of course.
Right.
And we have seen that with so many artists and arts organizations.
Yes.
Yep. And so that's why we have made it our business to always keep the fight going.
Describe the fight today.
The fight today is something as simple as, put money into this building to develop it into a world-class arts center, because it can be. You already have the resident companies. You already have the artists. We could make it, and people know of this, but everywhere you go around the world, when you say, oh, yeah, we're from there. Oh, I know that place you're from there. Oh, yes, I know that place. I've been there before. What's happening with you guys? They want to know. But they also know our struggle. But we don't want people to know us by our struggle that is happening right now. That, oh, you guys are always this. You're going through this. There's a conversation. We want to go by. This is what we do. We are creating this. We are making it a world-class center where people that come. We want to make our theater a world-class theater. And because, right now, having theater space is so challenging, but we have one of the, we have a theater here that can be created, into a world-class place, because it's small, it's intimate, and the decor is wonderful,
Yes.
very classic.
I've seen so many shows there and I've performed there. It's only the 500 seats. It's so wonderful, wonderful.
Yes.
In this building, since you've been here for so many years, could you share one or two of the most memorable memories that you've had in this building?
Ooh, I would say when we think about when I imagine, the collection of African artists from back in the 80s, 90s, that was one of my most memorable. It's during that time, people with those very artists, and, and not only just the master artists or teachers, but also the dancers, and the drummers that came through this place. It was a power that, you don't realize anymore, and sometimes I think about that, I say, oh, wow, and I know we can, I say if we could go back to that moment, that time period, because artists were working together. It was like, again, everyone had, the particular culture, the tradition and whatnot, but the bigger picture was, hey, when you are doing the Congolese class, you have the drummers from Diamano Coura drumming there. You have the drummers from, African music and dance ensemble. They are also in that class. Plus the dancers are also there. That particular era is the most memorable. I always go back. That's my fallback. Yes.
And the cultures that were shared were, you mentioned Congolese.
Yes, the Ghanaian, the Guinea, the Senegalese, the Liberian, At that time, too, you have few people you had, Ethiopian, because we used to pull that in, too, Because now, yes, we all used to do the skitster. I have my student at Berkeley, how they always teach me skitster. So you had that, plus you have here the Brazilian, you have the Coura, and all of that. We all used to do samba. We all used to do a little, try to do a little capoeira, with Carlos, and whatnot. But that time period, if we could recapture that and bottle it, it would be a powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the last 5 decades, how have you seen your community evolve? If you think about back in Southern California, of course, now we have a larger community, but how would you describe, your community today versus 40, 50 years ago?
Yeah. One of the things I try not to do, and that is a powerful question, but I try not to compare, only because then we go into there is the good and there is the bad, but I always look at things like it's a different time period. The environment is different, the politics are different, the society, even how we dance is different, and there, like we said, there is a new generation, and they are creating their own, putting their own mark on things, and, we have to understand, more than I think we can even compare or criticize.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I always I tell my students, my dancers, we have to evolve. A society that doesn't evolve will be stagnant, and we're done.
Speaking of next generation, I know you've been a mentor and a guide for so many young folk. As we are beginning to come towards the end of our conversation, What is your message for the next generation? What would you like the next generation to know?
I always say sit at the feet of your elders. Because that's how you understand the foundation of what you are doing or where you need to go. What needs to change, what needs to remain, So, that is the biggest advice. You must sit at the feet of your elders because they didn't come from there for nothing. They have something to offer you. But also, most important, you must have the ear to listen and the heart to understand.
Know your history.
Yes.
Know your history.
Very important.
And speaking of history, I know you're very humble, Mama Naomi. What do you think is your legacy?
I would say, bringing people together. That's what I want, bringing people together, always. And, showing, I know that African art form is that it's a collective art, that wasn't meant to be an individual play art form, and if we can understand that, it would be fabulous. Yes.
And what is your hope? What do you want to let people know about the African culture? I know it's a big and loaded.
Yes, it's a loaded question. Yes.
And it does not need to be a comprehensive answer. You know what comes to the top of your mind.
I would say right off the top to understand that it's a living art form.
Yes, maybe.
And if you can understand what it is to live, right? You will appreciate everything that comes from African tradition. Because when you think about living African tradition, there are so many traditions that are similar, because, I was thinking yesterday as I was watching a program, and they talked about, all the time, and I teach this to I talk to it with my daughter. I say, think about when the world was one, before it broke off. We all ran across each other. We knew each other. One separated. It's only when the earth separated, that now we have these differences, but we are still connected. If we want to go from the beginning of time, we know where we come from. We know we were one, But it's also okay to be different, But you're different. Your difference, right, should not be a hindrance or burden.
Sharing our commonalities and differences through arts and cultural connection.
Exactly so.
Is there anything else that you would like to share, Jeanette?
Well, if I were to share something, I'd say, I am fortunate, to have a wonderful family.
Yeah.
A wonderful company, group of artists who are, and I want to say, if you give artists the opportunity to spread their wing, they are so fantastic. They can do some amazing things, So my role right now, I'm a guide. Yes. Just when I see them, if they're going crooked, I got to bring, kind of scoot them back in place, But right now where I am, I'm a mentor, I'm a guide, I'm a mom, to everyone, besides even my children.
Well, may so many of us continue to be blessed by your guidance, for a bright future of building this beautiful collective community ahead.
Texas.
So, Mama Naomi, I thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
This is hopefully one of the many conversations to come. I'm deeply grateful for you coming into my life, you being this amazing Mama Naomi for a cultural community, and for being such a powerful presence and example for so many of us. So thank you so much for the conversation today.
Oh, you are most welcome, and it's my pleasure. Yes, I totally enjoyed it. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.